Brett Parker, welcome to the African Tech Roundup.
Thanks very much, Andile. Good to be here.
Well, enterprise resource planning, that's the name of the game as far as SAP is concerned. Is ERP still a thing?
Absolutely, Andile. I mean, the reality is that, ERP is very much part of the digital journey. You need to have a solid integrated platform in order for you to get the benefits of digital transformation and everything that you want to do around consumer experience, around real-time offers and everything else. I think the reality is what companies need today is they need an ERP platform that runs real-time. So they can have access to data, and that data can be transaction processing type data that is then on a single platform that you can get reporting environments going, access to data on mobile devices, everything else that you need. But without ERP, you're not going to have much of a digital journey ahead of you. So you've got to make sure that you have that in place. And that's the platform for things that you can do moving forward.
And so in your mind, anybody, any C-suite out there looking to remain relevant in this digital future that's approaching has to be thinking this way?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to modernize your ERP. You've got to make sure that you can run your business real time and have a live business environment. That's important. But you can't forget about it. It's not something that you can just say, oh, we've done that and that's the end of it. I think the important thing about ERP or about digital transformation and digital journeys is it's the data that's so important. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you're controlling your data, that the data is the center of everything that you do. It's not about the applications. Okay, the applications are merely delivering the different scenarios that you need and everything else. The data is the key. It's the center of everything that you do, and that data will reside and should reside in a real-time business platform, an ERP platform that integrates everything across an organization. So when we talk about data, you can't have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versions of data, because then you don't know which data is the data that is the real data, right? Because if you have data, for example, on an individual, there's only one set of data that is relevant for that individual. You can't have more than one. So single data source, fully integrated on an ERP platform is the cornerstone of what you need to move into the digital opportunities and the industries that you serve.
And isn't that one of the challenges, though, in terms of legacy institutions, large corporates and others, sometimes having upwards of 20, sometimes even up to 100 odd different systems running, different applications running various things within the organization. Tell me about how that's a challenge to be overcome, and tell me whether or not this is sometimes an inhibitor to getting people thinking the way they ought to for the future.
Yeah, so of course legacy is always going to be a problem, and the reality is that you need to switch the stuff off. Okay, so if it doesn't work, it's not giving you a real-time platform. You've got to move in that direction, and as you move, you must switch the legacy off, because it's just going to be Achilles heel to everything that you do. And again, you're going to have multiple sources of data. So if you have some legacy and you want to start a digital transformation journey, there's no reason why you can't do things in parallel, because you've got to keep the business running on the one hand whilst you build the future on the other. So I think, there's different approaches and different ways of doing it. I think where people and companies really struggle is when it comes time to make the tough decision to switch the legacy off, because someone's always got a reason why they should keep it on. And we've made many of these tough decisions at SAP. None of them are easy. We've spent, in some cases, billions on building new solutions that we realize after time it's not right, or it won't be relevant for our customers, and we've got to switch it off. So these are the decisions that you've got to make in business, and you've got to be bold to make those decisions. And I think, digital transformation, as we've discussed during the last 2 days, it's not easy, and it requires people that lead it to be bold in the decisions they make.
It's interesting question comes up when you say that. Does SAP run SAP?
No, of course we do. And by the way, so do most of the other multinational tech companies. They all run SAP. So it's a privilege to be in the position we're in. But again, we've done some bold things since 2010. We doubled the size of our business. We did some serious acquisitions. Many of them were very bold, but we did them because we believed that we had to do those to be relevant to our customers and to have the kind of partnerships that we had. And when you do those things, they come with what we call corporate cholesterol, right? So you've got a lot of cholesterol in the company where people are, struggling to get things done. You get hierarchy builds up. You get all these types of things that come with a fast growth, aggressive kind of business model and strategy. But you've got to keep churning it out. You've got to keep cleaning it up, and you've got to keep it out. Otherwise, you cannot remain agile. You cannot, change quickly and move to be some of the fast movers in some opportunities, which gives you the leadership position. So these are the kind of things we're going through all the time, and it's not dissimilar to our customers. Our customers do the same thing. And in fact, the digital transformation sessions that we've been on in the last couple of days, most of the discussion we've been sharing is about our own experience and how we are going through things at SAP. And our customers are sharing experiences that they are going through. And so this is not a session that is about SAP as a solution or as a product or anything like that. It's more about partners and customers sitting together, sharing their experiences and talking about how to improve things and where to make the bets moving forward and how to go. What's the approach? How do you simplify the architecture? How do you take out the legacy? How do you do the change management process in the company and things like that? So it's those types of discussions.
It's interesting. I have it under good authority that 2010 was a rough around about 2010 was pretty rough for SAP globally. You guys are obviously market leaders in almost every respect. Choose a metric, and the mighty do fall, and you guys had to think differently. You've already alluded to it. What would you say is the biggest, bring it down to maybe one thing, the biggest thing that you guys had to rethink around how you go about doing your business?
So there's been many big things, Andile. I can't tell you like over the years, but in my opinion, the biggest decision that was made in 2010 was when Jim Snabe and Bill McDermott got together. Probably, I wasn't in the meeting, but probably with Hasso as well, and they probably decided, we're either going to be a company that is going to be a leader, that's going to acquire other companies, and we're going to be relevant to the markets and the customers that we serve, or alternatively, we're going to be a company that will be acquired by another. And I think, that fundamental decision at that point in time was key, because that decision leads to many others. The others are things like, we need an aggressive acquisition strategy. We need to understand where the markets are going and where we want to be. In our business, you want to be number one and you want to be leading in the areas that you serve. So we're number one in the industry. Nobody does industry like SAP. 27 different industries. We know all the business processes start to finish. We work with our customers globally to develop those processes. We make them available in best practices. We're number one in mobile. We acquired Sybase to give us that position. We're number one in analytics. We're number one in in-memory computing. We're in many of the segments in cloud. We're number one, whether it's about transactions you measure or whether it's about number of customers. We're number one in cloud. And we're fast becoming number one in database as well. We're currently, lagging a little behind some of the traditional database vendors in the let's call it the client server and the relational database environment.
Shout out to IBM.
Yeah. So those are the areas. But if you heard what I just said, that strategy that decision we made in 2010 was to be number one in those categories, and that's why we aggressively went over these, after these acquisitions, and then it's also built from the core, and today, if you look, I think, if you take our revenue, you started with a question of ERP, right? I mean, how important is ERP? ERP is super important, and I'm not just saying that because we're SAP. The reality is we do a lot more today than just ERP. ERP is probably about 18% of our revenue. So we're not, we are the best at ERP. We run everything in memory, everything live, but we're not just an ERP company. And it's important that people recognize that. The reason why we should be the partner of choice on the digital transformation side is because which other company understands how to run your business better than SAP? There aren't companies that understand business processes like we do by industry. And although you may want to so there's examples, you may want to get into different industries. For example, you're a retailer, you want to get into banking. Who helps you get into banking? The people who understand technology and banking and business processes are the ones that you choose to help you. And that's SAP. You can go to a tech company, but they don't know how to run a bank. They don't know what the business processes are. So these are big differentiators, and that's why the industry piece is so important, right? Is because we understand it very well. And we also, what we're doing here with this executive digital exchange, we're building communities globally that will then share amongst each other around these experiences about what they're doing and help companies to actually, make the changes they need to make the decisions they need to make to become the digital companies that they want to become.
What is the biggest market for you guys on the continent?
So just in terms of revenue, I mean, obviously South Africa is the biggest, and for many reasons. I think we've also been in South Africa for 25 years, so that's quite a long time. But, I think that Africa is an amazing continent. I mean, I know that you get different views on Africa. People see the challenges. There are many of them, and they're very different. You go to different countries, different markets, the challenges are different. It's not the same. So you need to have a mindset that understands that Africa is not a country. It's a continent with 54 countries on it, including Egypt. And each country is different, and the challenges are different, but the opportunities are immense. So you need to have the mindset that says these are the opportunities that we have in Africa. And let's be sensible about how we go and build them, develop them, and go after them. So we have, if I look at it, I'll just tell you about the growth. I mean, there's massive growth happening in countries like Morocco and Algeria and up north and some in Tunisia, for example. But there's also nice growth coming out of other countries across the continent. And I mean, you can go anywhere and you'll see them, in pockets and whatever. So I think that, you just need to pick where you got to be. What we did was we built a hub model. So we have hubs that serve all of our customers across 53 different countries. And those hubs are built to serve the different languages that we have across the continent as well. So this is the way that we do things, and we have a strong partner ecosystem. I think this is very important. And then another thing we do is we invest a lot in skills development so that we can actually make SAP skills available to customers at reasonable types of costs as well. So these things are very important to us as well. But we see our business growing in a lot of major geographies. Kenya, geographies like even in some of the places where business is a bit tough, in Angola and Nigeria, those businesses are still growing in different ways and in different areas. I also think that Africa is very well suited to cloud. Okay, because cloud is somewhere it gives you the opportunity because you can get the experts to run the business for you. You don't have to make major capital investment. You can keep your capital, invest in some operational expenses to run the cloud. You don't like the service you get, you don't like the solutions, you terminate it. It's a consumption-based model. All of the things that suit an emerging economy are actually sitting there in the cloud models. And then the beauty of Africa is we don't have the legacy, right? We don't have to drag along all these big systems and all this capital investment that's sitting on the balance sheet as well. So many of these things mean that we're well suited. So we've seen some amazing growth in our cloud business on the continent too.
So I was actually going to ask you what sort of stark differences in experience and execution you sort of see when you're around your contemporaries who manage businesses in other regions around the world. Maybe the top two things that are totally different about their experience in terms of managing SAP's business, say, in Europe or in the US, for example.
So, look, I always think about it as mature markets and emerging markets. I mean, there are big differences between the two. You need to understand what they are. If you want to operate in an emerging market, you need to know what that takes. So we see a lot of similarities between businesses, for example, in the Middle East and businesses in Africa, and how we do business as SAP in these regions. Even the same for, I'd say, Eastern Europe, Russia, these types of regions. I've worked in all of them, and the challenges that we have there are very similar, in terms of doing business. Mature markets are much more predictable. So sales cycles are predictable. Corporate governance is it's documented. Compliance, all of those types of things. I'm not saying that in emerging markets they're not there. They're all there, but not necessarily documented to the perspective and predictable to the perspective that we have in mature markets. So if you look at some of our customers in Germany and France and the UK and the US, these types of mature markets, everything is well understood. The process that are followed, everything is well communicated around that. In emerging markets, it's not necessarily the case. So you've got to keep working with, the fact that things are changing, things are moving, decision making happens in a different way. In emerging markets, there's often meetings that are called to make decisions, and people attend the meetings and make a decision. In a mature market, it's more like we'll wait for the next board meeting that happens. They do it there because it's structured, right? And it goes to, and the same for the payments. Cash collection is something that we always focus on in emerging markets because the payments don't just happen. You've got all kinds of regulations in the national banks. In some places, you've got currency controls. You've got to work with, different types of scenarios in emerging markets that don't even exist in mature markets. So I say that, we often find people that operate in mature markets, they see things in a very simplistic way. It's like it's very structured. You sign a contract, you get paid on the 25th of the month. The debtors days are not, I'm just giving you one example on cash collection, but the debtors days are not there, etc. But if you expand that across the whole ambit of doing business in emerging markets, we see that there are a lot of similarities globally. It's not an African thing or Middle East. It's emerging markets, and the same for mature. A lot of similarities across the mature markets, but they're very different to operate in those different markets.
And so you and your team, executive team, what's like totally green fields that you guys are going for at the moment? Totally green fields.
So look, I mean, I think first of all, there's opportunities in industries on the continent that we haven't invested in and we haven't gone after, and I think the time is right for that. And I'm just going to mention two major ones. So the first one is healthcare. So we will now have a dedicated team of people that are going to focus on healthcare. And bring some of our healthcare innovation solutions and some of the great things we've built with our partners, to the continent to improve healthcare, predictive healthcare, management of patient health, all of these types of things that will help not only the healthcare providers, but also the citizens of Africa, right, to manage their health better and to understand it better and things like that. So there's a lot of that type of work that I see happening, and that's greenfields type of things that has not been there before, and nobody is really pushing it. And we see that we have an opportunity to do that through the communities, the healthcare communities and practitioners and things that we're working with. The other one is agriculture, right? So agriculture is a big one. And we think that there is a big opportunity through innovation and through digitization to change the agricultural business on the continent. People spoke about, Brazil is providing most of the agriculture. It's nonsense. Africa's agricultural and arable land is 5 times the size of any other continent globally. This is the breadbasket of the world. It's called Africa. So the big thing for us is to then take some of the key partnerships we have with some big customers like an OCP, for example, in Morocco, who supply a lot of the fertilizer and things for the farming communities on the continent and globally.
What's an OCP?
It's a company that's based in Morocco.
Oh, is it a name of a company?
Yeah, it's a name of a company. So
that was an acronym.
Yeah. So they basically, and it's French, so I'm not going to try.
I'm going to challenge yourself.
CP is the abbreviated version, right? So anyway, so they're a company we're working with, and really what we want to do is we want to take more value to the farmers. So at the end of the day, a farmer should know that if they put this amount of fertilizer on these crops at this time and this amount of water and all of that knowledge and that technology in place, they will increase the yield on those crops by, let's say, 30% or 40%. So those types of things. Then the other thing is that when they take these crops to market, they need to know how much they're going to get for the crops, right, before they get there. So it's like, that whole supply chain, the ecosystem, and the technology that is needed to improve the agricultural business in Africa is a greenfields opportunity. And for us, we're best positioned to do that because we understand it. We've got the partnerships that we need to make it happen. And now what we need to do is we need to bring the communities along. So, Africa's a big place. You don't want to start with the hardest pieces. So there's some softer landings that you can go after. And we already have some projects in place in some of the areas in East Africa, for example, and in North Africa, where we're working with some co-ops and other people to get these types of solutions available to the farmers.
I'm just thinking there are a lot of happy fish they're going to thank you once farmers are putting just the right amount of fertilizer in the ground as opposed to like dumping the whole bag,
Yeah. No, look, I mean, we were saying earlier about digital innovation and things. People always think about it as this huge, complex, thing to tackle. But in actual fact, if you put it into bite-sized chunks, figure out the small things that can give you the quick wins that can make a difference, no matter whether you're talking about an industry like agriculture or whether you're a company yourself that is just looking at things and considering what you can do. Think about it like that. You can keep your business running on the one hand, but you can give some quick wins to your executives, to your customers, to other things. You don't have to take on a huge, let's call it a mammoth project with huge complexity, because then you tend not to get out the blocks. You're stuck and you're wheel spinning and you don't deliver anything, right? So I think this quick win scenario and those types of approaches are the right thing for the digital transformation journeys that people should take. The only thing I would say, if you're going after quick wins, you've got to have the right architecture in place from the get-go, because what you don't want to do is you go after quick wins with company A, then you get another quick win with company B, and the next thing you turn around after 3 years of the quick wins, now you're ready to say our digital platform is almost there, and you now got 7 architectures, 7 different technologies and backbones, and you're back where you were.
Well, thank you so much, Brett. Brett Parker of SAP, man in charge right here on the continent. Thank you very much for chatting to me on the African Tech Roundup.
Great, Andile. Thanks for having me. Cheers.